their goal has been to import and impose a top-down business ideology on the public education system. That, according to them, is what is really needed. And this business ideology treats schools almost as mini factories in which inputs of resources are to yield ever greater outputs in the form of student test scores, in which teachers are essentially assembly line workers who shape the product according to management specifications, and pesky entities like parent associations and teacher unions are to be ignored or co-opted or just dispensed with altogether, as Mona was describing it in the chartered land. And I think when you think about this emphasis on management ideology as the key to turning around the schools, it ties back to this larger neoliberal economic vision, because what it does is it takes public education and takes our political leaders off the hook for having to adequately and equitably fund all of our schools. Because when you hear these reformers talk, like I said, they talk about management ideology, increasing test scores. You never hear them talk about the sort of things that Laney's been talking about for years, like class size, reducing class size, or providing a richer curriculum, or even providing up-to-date textbooks or laboratory equipment that's often not present in the schools, because to do that costs money. And the funding for that would most likely have to come from higher taxes, which would have to come from the wealthy and corporations. And so once you start to see that all their talk about being at the forefront of a new civil rights revolution, it is largely PR, because what you're seeing is actually a process of disinvestment in the public schools, and then using the rhetoric of accountability to blame the people, the teachers and the students and the communities, for the failure. So it's quite amusing chutzpah, as far as I can see. But that's how it works, or that's sort of the rhetorical club. And to give some examples of sort of how some of these key foundations have worked. Now, I'm mostly focused on three: Gates, Broad, and Walton. Both because they're the largest, and in many ways they act in a very synchronized fashion and support a lot of the same initiatives. So the Walton family is mostly prioritized really throwing a lot of money behind charter schools and charter management organizations, as well as a number of school voucher initiatives. Gates and Broad have had their fingers in just about everything, from supporting charter school and charter management organizations, research and advocacy groups, think tanks that provide the intellectual infrastructure, and really across the whole spectrum in Washington, D.C., from the places like the Brookings Institute, which tend to lean Democratic, all the way over to the American Enterprise Institute, which gave us a lot of the neocons in the Bush years. And you just pour the money around, and amazingly, everybody, the broad consensus is what they're doing is a wonderful thing. And so there's only this sort of manufacture of consent. Here in New York, the Gates Foundation in particular very aggressively supported breaking up large schools into small schools, and you don't want to overgeneralize and say that there weren't some successes in that, but there was also a lot of schools where it didn't work out so well, and eventually Gates really pulled back from that, but never really admitted he was wrong. Instead, he stepped up his support for proliferating charter schools. He decided, well, the small schools didn't really work out. What we really need is charter schools, and we need a lot more evaluation and merit pay type measures to monitor the performance of teachers. And so again, no real accountability for him, but more accountability for everyone else. one of the interesting things also was, as the results sort of came back in the mid-2000s, that his initiative wasn't working out so well. Okay. He stepped up his support, started pouring more millions of dollars into advocacy work and basically funding AstroTurf type groups that would get out there and support what he was doing. And so you have this huge unaccountable foundation, and when it hears what it doesn't want to hear, it can just go out and buy what, you know, the credibility that it needs. And totally running out of time here. Let's see. And also, real quick, one other group that I think merits special attention. It's a very influential force in current matters. Are some of the hedge fund operators who started Democrats for Education Reform. And these are the people that poured money into some of the races here in New York, including the one with Senator Montgomery and Senator Perkins and Senator Huntley, where they didn't like the results they were getting. They didn't like the fact that your representatives were, seems like, representing you and weren't representing them. So they wanted to just go out and replace them with people more to their liking and put hundreds of thousands of dollars into that. And the people of those districts did not see through it, but it's still a very powerful tool to be able to wield an incumbent politician to say, I'm going to do that kind of thing. So that's definitely another driving force. And Democrats for Education Reform has really moved the discussion in the larger National Democratic Party, you know, away from much more toward this sort of corporate education model. So they've had a very powerful effect in that way. And real quickly, I guess just run through a few other quick things. One of the outcomes of a lot of this work that these foundations have done is that they basically captured the federal Department of Education under Arne Duncan, former CEO of Chicago Public Schools. When he ran those schools, the Gates Foundation put $63 million into various initiatives that he carried out. He showed he was a very diligent water carrier for them, so he got promoted to Washington and then promptly brought with him key people from Gates and Broad, including Joanne Weiss, who's now running the Race to the Top program, James Shelton, his chief of staff, Marjorie Ramos, both straight out of the Gates Foundation. And basically the Gates Foundation conceived of Race to the Top. They had key people under Duncan who carried it out. They even helped states fill out their application forms, and then they judged those applications. So it's like, whose Department of Education is it? I'm not sure it's ours anymore, to the extent it ever was. And so again, I guess the last, and one other area which is, I think, also important to keep in mind is that what we're seeing in the public schools is also headed toward higher education. The Gates is very active now in different initiatives here in New York, in CUNY, and it's all under the rubric of improving graduation rates. He's playing a key role in helping launch a new community college at the City University of New York, and which sounds great, except what you're going to see, it's very much on the charter type model. This school is going to open in 2012, I think, inside the John Jay campus over in Manhattan. But the only students who will be allowed to attend, they have to be full-time students. They'll get lots of resources, but it'll basically screen out. The community colleges in particular in New York serve poor, working class, immigrant students who are up against tremendous obstacles, and they're just going to sort of, weed out those, and then they'll be able to say, look at this amazing new success we've had, because, they're not going to have any sort of tenured faculty. It's going to be very much the way they want to do it, and then they're going to defund the 6 other community colleges that serve over 85,000 students to bulk up this one that will serve about 3,000 students, and then say, look what's wrong with our higher education.